What is up, old school RuneScape fans? Is your friend, your buddy, your pal, Ojama Garrett's here with another video, trying to distill whatever knowledge I have built up over 20 years of old school RuneScape playing into concepts that I can hopefully convey to you so that you can have a better experience in old school RuneScape, and hopefully you'll start to find that these also are parallel with real life productivity, and should be able to, if you get creative, be able to apply these concepts to your life too, as well as your RuneScape journey. So the two concepts I wanted to go over today are called batch and sequential processing. Now, these are both processes for processing, and they're almost the same, but they're very different. The one thing that makes them really different completely changes their structure and their function of what sort of objectives you're going for. But they're both very important. I really want to just talk about them. They're pretty simple, but I just feel like just having this in your mind when you're developing projects or developing your plans for your RuneScape-ing, these are super important to really just have nailed down and taught to you if you don't know them. So first off, we have batch, but I should probably teach you sequential first, because this is normally what people do that comes intuitively to them. And essentially, sequential processing is... I have the computer definition. It's using computer programming too, so I just have those definitions. I'm just going to read. So for sequential processing, in computing, sequential processing involves executing one task at a time in a linear order. This approach is simple and ensures that each task is fully completed before moving on to the next, but it can be slower if the tasks are not optimized for sequential execution. So essentially, it's just completing a task sequentially in a sequence. I know, mind-blowing, right? So what this means is, like, let's say we're going to make a new free-to-play trader. Just, because that's what I do. Step 1, create email. Step 2, create account. Launch. Jagex launcher, whatever, you know what I mean? Then you load it up, log in, create character name, then you start tutorial island, complete tutorial island, enter main land, and since we're a trader, run to the G and begin money makers, something like that. And the thing about sequential operation or sequential processing too is each of these steps have their own sequences in them, even creating an email, because then you have to open. I don't know if anybody's ever had this, but my teacher got us one time to get us thinking critically about this. This was first explained to me. It was back like in elementary school. They asked me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I said, well, you take bread, peanut butter, and jelly, you put them together. And they're like, well, no, that's not right. What do you mean? And then they would break it down that first you would want to make a sandwich, then you'd get up out of your seat, and then you'd walk to the kitchen, and then you'd open up the cupboard, and then you'd identify, and then they would break down every tiny little segment. And I didn't really get what that was for back when I was a kid. I thought they were just trying to be a jerk. But now I get it, because the main utility in sequential processing is polishing. That's probably a good word for it. Optimizing, reducing or identifying errors. This is its main sequence, or learning. Also, learning. This is very important too. Learning a system. Learning a job, moneymaker, etc. If that, you know what I mean? So that's like it's the largest utility of sequential processing. But so that's its advantages, and that's what you're doing it for. The disadvantages is that it's slow, and it huge mental. We gotta move this up. Load, cognitive load, because you're constantly switching tasks, and every time your brain isn't doing something, like have you ever entered a flow state? A flow state is like, you're in the you lose track of time. That's a flow state. So every time you have to even make a decision, or make a decision, change a task, you are increasing the cognitive load. You are putting strain on your brain. So that is the main disadvantage. Now, so this is a little bit not. So then batch processing, this is all sequential processing. I hope that makes sense. Okay. This isn't going to be the greatest content. I just hope I can just get the information out there. I just need to get the information out there. I need to help you guys out, or try to, you know what I mean? So then now we have batch processing, okay? Now let me just read the computer definition real quick. And that is, in computing, batch processing involves running a series of programs or jobs on a computer without manual intervention. These jobs are collected into batch and processed at a scheduled time, often during off-peak hours to optimize resource utilization. So this isn't really jumping out at you. It's not botting. Okay, that's not what this is. For the computer definition, the technical definition, it is saying it like it is botting. But batching, all it is, let's just give us the basic definition again. Like the no-brainer, completing task in batches, in a batch. Okay. So that would be like, this is why I needed to do this in this order. So say you have like you're comfortable with your tutorial island segment of your task over here. This is what it is. Batching is like taking a process and a series of tasks that you develop through sequential processing, and then you are taking one of those and you are increasing the repetitions of that one thing before moving on to the next step. So tutorial island would be a good example of this, because then if you did them in batches, I'm going to do batches of 50, whatever, you know what I mean? And what this does, the main reason you're doing this is because you want to really, really, really focus on just like getting into the flow state and just like operating at the highest level of effort you can. Because, so let's just go over let's define the strengths real quick. What is it mainly for? Efficiency. Efficiency. I don't remember if that's how you spell it. Speed. Getting a large load done quickly, or more quickly. Because the reason why that would happen is because you're doing it once, and if you do something once and you do it again right away, you can just get into it, get your brain into it, and once you enter that repetition stage, it becomes automatic. And then when it becomes automatic and you don't have to change your task, then you are able to complete large workloads at a time without lower cognitive load. Okay, so that is the reason we're doing batches, is to get a large amount of work done in a shorter period of time. It's more efficient to do it in batches. If you ever worked in a factory, you've ever worked anywhere really, all of your jobs are just a sequential task, starting a job to the dollar, to the goal, to get the goal, the dollar, the profit margin. There's somebody was there practicing a sequence, really working on this iterative process, and then scaled it up by, instead of one person doing the entire sequence, they get a bunch of different employees to do one thing, because then they can really just like scale, you know what I mean? Like, if you do one thing 1,000 times, you'll be better than that than doing 100 things 10 times. Okay, you know, it's like that. That's the real power here. But there is advantages, and now the disadvantages is if you have if it's higher OEE, that means operational or overall equipment efficiency. We use it in factories. That's how they measure our performance. But the negative, it's higher OEE both ways. So if you have an error, that error is getting that error is multiplied. So it's very important for you to have a good iterative process to get the sequential part down, because yes, you'll be getting more positive efficiencies, but you'll also be getting more negative efficiencies. So it is dangerous. So you need to like research and then deploy, research and then deploy. And that's essentially how you do this. And I have an example of that on the internet here, and it is from one of my streams. I did a couple of them, and we'll just quickly watch one of those back. Let me just pause my music over here, and I'll just kind of show you. I don't really have a sequential, but you'll get an idea of like what a batch processing can do for you. So as you can see here, I have how to turn your brain into scrambled eggs, which it does, and then 20 account run. But then I do tutorial island on 50 accounts. I guess we could just mute this, and then I can turn my music back on over here. So as you see here, I'm getting set up. Like instead of switching task to task, it's only one setup. Instead of setting up 50 times, because you'd have to switch between task and task, like in sequential processing, you just set up once and then you get to go. So I'm getting ready. You know, if we skip around a little bit, I'm logging in. I'm getting everybody logged in. Each task, you know, I'm 6 minutes in, and I'm only to the inventory spot here. But I'll just kind of skip through. And it gets tricky with 50. I was pushing my limits here. I've never done 50 at the same time for this long. I think the stream is an hour. Yeah, an hour straight. So if we keep going, yeah, I make it here. I make it to the cook's place, and then I got a lot of. It was very efficient doing having 10 accounts follow one, and then doing the sprint stretch here. That was pretty good. That took a lot of time off. So we have the time down here. And I get down here, and I think at the end of the stream, I talk about, I stop, like, because I'm coming up on the hour. I think I was telling myself I was only going to stream for an hour at a time. But I realized after doing these hour streams every day, I was not going to be able to maintain that and create daily content that would be meaningful for people to watch. I mean, this is crazy, but I can do this in my free time, and I can just teach you what I learned from it. But yeah, So what I did here is I took the total time that I was running up to this point, and then I divided it by 50 to get each account's effective rate at 1 minute and 8 seconds. So getting to this point in the tutorial island at 1 minute and 8 seconds is what I was determining here. And then if we... Yeah, let's look it up. I go to look it up. Tutorial island speed run. World record. And I'm comparing it to the world record, which is the most optimal sequential. Right. That's okay. So that's a good point. The most optimal. I didn't need to do the sequential development myself. All I did was watch the world record runner do his run, and then I just took notes and then applied that to my batch. Okay. But the sequential part was already done for me. So I'm looking up his time at this point because we're all at this one spot, and I stopped at that one spot. Oh, it's 17 now, I was gonna say. It's Will says. It's wrong. This guy got 248. So he got 248 from Tutorial Island creation to the end. Tutorial Island. 248 is the world record, 90%. And no multi-log is 26 minutes. Right, so what I mean by that, by any percent, is the guy who is running it the fastest, most optimal method, he used multiple accounts to get that account a couple skips. And then he used like there was some RNG factors that allowed for him to get like the fastest conceivable time. Oh, nobody even, okay. Nobody ran that. I could be 26 minutes. The fastest 2 minutes 48. So that means that video on YouTube I saw is correct. So I go to the YouTube video just to compare the times. I just don't. I remember I don't put it up on the screen. I should have. We're gonna just go to the play loads. Right, because this is overloading my computer. I have 64 gigabyte RAM, but my CPU is getting maxed out right now with 50 accounts open. And OBS recording with my NVIDIA broadcast getting rid of my background. It was a huge load on my graphics card too. Okay, so he's at a minute 16 so far. He's put the bar in. What did he say? A minute 16? Minute 16. Okay, so he's at a minute 16 so far. When he's putting the bar in. Oh, putting the bar in, and I think I'm to the dagger. I think I'm to the. I smith the dagger and I stop there. And at the end of the dagger, when the dagger spawns, it is a minute and 26 seconds. So I am 16 seconds ahead of the world record on each of these accounts in terms of effective processing. And that is a guy who practiced and practiced and practiced and then RNG'd his way to the most optimal world record speed that you can get that is on the internet that I've seen. So that's the power of batch processing. This was my first attempt at 50. Granted, I've ran a lot of accounts on Tutorial Island, but even a sloppy run with multiple mistakes at 50 accounts was still so efficient because I applied a very efficient sequential, but was able to ascend higher than that in terms of efficiency or overall efficiency because I was doing 50 at a time. And that's where economies of scales come in too. And maybe that'll be another concept we can talk about if I can try to. I think that's important in RuneScape, but I don't know how important. I don't think it's nearly as important as this and idle time. So hopefully all this makes sense. Let me get my face out of the way here. I didn't realize I was over that. But so to reiterate, sequential processing and batch processing are your two main ways of developing methods, developing moneymakers, being more productive. These are the two main core concepts that you'll be applying to progress as an old school RuneScape player. And you can even apply these in real life to any skill, hobby, whatever you want. Like these two core concepts scale really well. They apply really well in like all fields, anywhere. Your job, your anything, chores, hobbies, video games, etc. You can break stuff down into sequences, break those sequences down into sequences, and then start to identify the errors in those sequences and really optimize each sequence. And then once you have a sequence that you're satisfied with the result, like the time to completion, you can then move to batch and then really scale it up. If, like in a situation like RuneScape, really scale it up and then really increase your productivity and your efficiency and how much your money will scale up a lot more. Like, for example, 1 trader versus 500 traders. In another video, I've talked about that before. When I run 500 traders, I get about 100 mil a week with about 1 hour every 3 weeks and then about 6 hours every 4th week. So, I mean, it's very, very, very good money. And I can, it's only going up. But anyway, thank you very much. I hope you got this through my rambling. Today is going to be another rough one. I'm trying to get as much done as I can in a short amount of time. Hope you learned something. Hope this was of value to you, and I hope you have a nice day. So I'll catch you later.